Hey guys, how's it going today? We are going to be playing A Study in Steampunk Choice by Gaslight by Heather Albano. A story in steampunk, choice by Gaslight, or A Study in Steampunk, I'm stupid. Blech. Being an interactive tale of the adventures of an Imperial Army surgeon. So, previously, I have played Champions of the God by Jonathan Valukas, Choice of Robots by Kevin Gold, PhD. Those two are my favorite. I also played can't ever think of the name. Choice of Pirate by Elena Jolie Abbott, and then I also played just today actually because I was doing that and then I got pissed off, and then I decided I was gonna play this one because the other one was just garbage. I didn't like it. I couldn't read it either. It was just awful. That one was called Tin Star. That one was by Alan Gies, Gies. It's just not my thing at all. It's just gross. So anyway, I figured that one would keep me busy for the weekend, and instead it didn't. So now we're playing this one. I also have two more games in this currently purchased and downloaded on my computer. So whenever I end up getting done with this one, in case it ends up killing me right away, like Tin Star did, spoilers, we have other two to go. These also, these four games that I had, Tin Star, this one, Sabers of Infinity, and then Zombie Exodus or something like that. These four aren't actually in the Choice of Games series. They actually, Choice of Games has a very specific set of guidelines. It has to be at least 50,000 words in any variation of it that you play. So overall, it follows a fairly linear path towards the end. However, all of your different decisions over the course of time add up, and it feels different every time you play it. Champions of the Gods, a little bit less so than Choice of Robots. I mean, stuff still happens fairly similarly. But I went back and I played through both of them at least twice. I think I played through Champions of the God 4 times just to check out different endings and stuff like that. And of course, I played The Lost Heir. Duh, that one too. I forget who that one was by, but that one was that one was good. However, it specifically dropped you down into like a worse place at the end of all of them, and I didn't enjoy the ending to it. It wasn't satisfying. So the entire I just blocked that from my mind. I didn't like that one too much. I didn't give it a negative review like I did Tin Star though. Tin Star, fuck's sake, goddamn. All right, let's go ahead and check out our stats right away. So we have athleticism 50%, charisma 50%, healing 50%, marksmanship 50%, medicine 50%, perception 50%, and then we are halfway compassionate, halfway pragmatic, halfway conventional, halfway unconventional, and then we are half between stealthy and quick. I don't know. They seem like they would go hand in hand, but sure, that's where we are. All right, start a new game. Let's do this. Prologue in the war-torn mountains. They've actually got like art and everything in this one. All right, begin the game. The air outside shakes with the sound of cannon, and the ground shakes with heavy footfalls of steam-powered Vlasky and Mercian mechs. Within the prison walls, you can hear shouting, voices, and running feet, but none have reached this corridor yet. You stagger toward daylight as fast as you can, Pierce's arm draped heavily over your shoulders. He was the only prisoner still alive to rescue. The other captured soldiers were beyond your help, their handprint-marked bodies left in heaps like so much rubbish. It is the year 1881, and you are an officer in the medical corps. Yeah, I always just say it says corps. Just read it that way. Of the Mercian Imperial Army, currently stationed at the very edges of the Empire, where you hold the line against encroaching Vlaskasari. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. I'm going to say Vlaskasari. All of Her Majesty's officers are skilled and well-trained men, of course, but only the true elite were assigned to this daring prison camp rescue. So tell us, why are you among them? What skill do you possess that makes you so extraordinary? I hold the record in my unit for fast, efficient, effective surgery under fire. Though I am part of the medical corps, my medical skill is far eclipsed by my marksmanship. I am a crack shot, if I say it myself. I am quite the athlete. I've played rugby and boxed ever since I was a lad. My unusual endurance and strength serve me well in hand-to-hand combat, as well as often grueling conditions of the waterfront. Blech. I almost said waterfront. I am known among my colleagues for my silver tongue. I can soothe, frighten, patience, bluff at the card table, intimidate young soldiers, and weave a good tale with equal ease. The issue that I have with a lot of these is that I personally, although I am capable of performing in different situations such as these, like I did really well in anatomy class. I could have probably gone on to be a doctor if I'd given a shit about school. Um, I'm athletic. I'm also, decently strong. Go ahead and just not terribly small. I did only gain that because I happened to work in a factory, and I worked in a factory before that, and that's how I paid for Willow in the house and everything. That's how I keep that light on. And food. Food is good. I have some right here. Right, this is fried potato that Nicole made, and it's good, but I'm not eating it because I'm fucking full. I already ate it. I finished off Tin Star, and I ate, and I was like fucking pissed. And then, actually, I didn't finish off Tin Star. I played the first episode, ate, did the second episode, got pissed, and then immediately played this one because I wanted something to make me feel a little bit better. Also, note, commas. Oh, fucking love them. You notice how smooth that was reading that, except for me fucking up reading one of the words. That sounded a whole lot better. Also, if you guys wanted to watch this without me just breaking up all the time, I'm sorry, that's not happening. Let's go on, Sam's. A lot of the times in these games, trying to be that person that talks people down, like the Lost Heir trying to be like a magic type person, and then trying to be the charismatic, didn't work. Worked fairly well in Choice of Pirate though. Like the Cambiar in that's what they called their magic in that one. That it worked pretty well in that one. It didn't feel like a brand new experience. It kind of felt like they took the premise of all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, like all of the myths of the sea, and just rehashed them again. Still a decent game though if you enjoy this style of game. And of course I got videos on it too if you guys want to check those out. I should probably link those. Fuck, I have to do a description now. Okay, I'm gonna say I'm known for my silver tongue because I like to be able to talk people out of stuff. It's more satisfying than just punching shit. Also, that gave me a 25% boost in charisma. So rather than being at 25 and then up to like 43, we're up at 75 now. The ability to bluff and intimidate is often useful when inside enemy encampments. Indeed, it has proven useful once today. Really. Without it, you could have never gotten the Light Eater to lose your comrade from the rescue party. You had no other weapon but your voice and your face, and yet you made the Vlasks... I'm just going to call them the Vlasks. The Vlask believe there was someone about to attack him from behind. You saved your comrade's life. A good job, too. There was far too much death today. You wince at the memory of the captured soldiers you were too late to save, and cringe to think of how they died. Life-eating is a vile, sickening practice. It sickens you in particular, for personal reasons. There is only a little farther to go now. Your companions retreated, as per orders, when the sounds of combat outside indicated the mission had gone pear-shaped, but you couldn't bear to leave without checking the last row of cells. And a good thing you did, or you never would have found Pierce. And you'll remember the smell of that room for a long time, the way it brought sickness to the back of your throat. It was a fight for you to keep your hand steady enough to free him from his restraints. I'm not sure why there's all these parentheticals in here, but it's kind of goofy. Hopefully it doesn't continue. You emerge into the daylight, and Pierce gives a sob of relief. And then you realize you have walked out into the middle of a mech firefight. Thundering metal giants, Vlasky and Mercian, hurl enormous cannonballs at each other. I retreat back into the prison, Pierce's cry of despair notwithstanding. Place of horrors or not, its strong stone walls will protect the two of us from the immediate danger. I risk a bold shot, waving to draw the attention of the Mercian mech pilot in the hope that he will move to protect us. I try to split the difference, looking out for a place to hide that will keep us safe from the battle rages, but still keep us close enough to be easily rescued. Let's retreat back into the prison. I'm not interested in that. Before you have taken more than a step in that direction, the ground-shaking stomp of a mech foot negates your plan. The ground heaves under your feet. Pierce's arm slips from your shoulders as you fall, and you hear him cry out as he stumbles beside you down a slope you hadn't had time to notice. Blinking dirt out of your eyes, you catch a blurred, tilted vision of the Vlasky mech stomping... I thought I called it Vlasky before. That's funny. I think they already called it Vlasky once, though. Or maybe I did just pronounce it that way naturally. It sounds Russian. Obviously, it's a VL. along the bank above. Steam pours from its ears like fog. The stokers inside must be working double time. The head swivels, blank eyes passing over your position, but the gigantic feet do not stop their forward progress. Perhaps the gunner inside can't see you amidst all the boulders. Or perhaps he has a more attractive target to pursue. Craning your head, you see outlined against the distant mountains the corresponding Mercian mech, the one in which you had arrived to execute this smash and grab raid, and which was intended to be your transportation back to the Mercian lines. Its cannon arm is up and firing, but it is retreating. As you watch, the Vlasky mech's pursuit quickens into a jog. Damnation, your presence has just become behind enemy lines. Your position. Yeah. You roll over to check on Pierce. His uniform is torn in many places, revealing the livid red handprints encrusted over knife slashes that model otherwise sickly pale skin. He could hardly stand when you pulled him out of the cell, and the tumble down the slope could have done him no good at all. But amazingly, his eyes blink open. They regard you in an uncertain, unfocused sort of way. How many fingers? You ask, holding up your hand. 2? He rasps. Maybe 3? Remember your name? Pierce smiles a little. Pierce, he mumbles. James S. He looks up to you, trying for the old cheeky grin, and it's pretty close to the bravest thing you've ever seen. Remember yours? Of course you remember yours. You haven't been captured and tortured, but you suppose you might as well humor him. What is your last name? Fuck it, let's go with Watson. And you're given, just go with John Watson. My name's John Watson, thanks. And the middle initial that appears in your Army Rescues. Oh, fuck. What is his middle initial? I'm not a massive Sherlock Holmes fan. I haven't actually read it. I did watch the entirety of the show because it was on Netflix. It became a lot less interesting after Sherlock came back from the dead. Spoilers. I'm not even going to bother trying because I'm going to get it wrong. Let's just say it's K. I'm going to not put the period because they're probably going to put it in for me. You suppose you might as well humor him. John Watson K. Yep, they put in the K, their period for me. You crane your head to see over the side of the ravine. It's hard to tell how far away the battle has carried the two mechs. All you can see is barren rocky wasteland stretching in every direction. Even before the devastation wreaked by the steam-driven war machinery of two empires, the tiny mountain country of Goraska, I don't know how to pronounce that specific A, I'm going to say Goreska, was a place no one in their right mind would want. Your empire and the Vlasky Empire fight over it only because it is the last barrier between them. You look back down in time to catch the expression on Pierce's face and move hastily to reassure him. The lads will come back for us. It's all right if they don't. Pierce's eyes drift closed. He looks almost peaceful. At least I'm dying out here instead of in there. You're not about to die, you chide him. You're with me. You've nothing to worry over. He smiles a little. Of course, silver-tongued rascal. And crack shot, I interrupt him. It's true, even though it's not my foremost skill. I have often been commander from a merchant ship and first-class doctor. Let's go with the doctor. I don't have to read the rest of them because it's just going to choose between shooting or strength. Let's go with doctor. Pierce's brief smile fades. I wasn't afraid, when they first came for me, the Light Eaters. I thought I knew, because we had a healer, in the village when I was small. Most villages did back in those days. Some still do. The religions of the two empires have the same root, after all, though Mercia broke the power of its sun temples centuries ago. And the Vlasky, or the Vlaskasari, I'm just calling them Vlasky allowed theirs to evolve into the current monstrosity, where light eating is considered the sacred privilege of the sun-touched instead of a perversion and abomination. You think of the pile of handprint-stained bodies, and bile rises in the back of your throat. Gross. Bile does not rise in the back of your throat. You know what bile is? It comes from the gallbladder. That should not be in my fucking throat. That had to have gone back up through my stomach, past my duodenum, and into my throat. Ugh. No, that's not happening. I'm not a boomer from Left 4 Dead. Under control of Vlasky aristocrats, Vlasky serfs are still stuck in superstitious dark ages where they are trained to see sun touched as blessed and deserving of reverence, even, especially, when those sun touched drain the life from their bodies. Oh, so people they sacrifice themselves to the sun touched and they get their life sucked out of them Wraith style from Stargate Atlantis. Mercia, in contrast, has entered an age of reason, despite the words for old concepts like hell and damnation still lingering in the language as curse words, and the educated no longer subscribe to the nonsense believed by medieval ancestors. Still, a form of sun worship still flourishes in some of the more backward colonies, and can even be found among the lower classes and country folk of Mercia itself. Some people consider it harmless. Others claim it is a smokescreen for the same light-eating horrors that go on in Vlasky lands. Some of the villagers said our healer was a light eater. I should probably bother doing voices for him. Hang on. Some of the villagers said our healer was a light eater. That they all were, Pierce says. But that was absurd. She was a good and kind, and still they said it. So I wasn't afraid. When the Vlasky came to drag me from my cell, he pauses. One hand drifts to touch the blood-red handprint on his chest, where a light-eater sucked his life through his skin to nourish itself. I should have been afraid. Yes, he should have been. The best thing Mercy ever did was to break the power of the sun temples. Every sun-touched person has the capacity to become a light-eater. It angers me when light-eating is equated with sun worship. My grandmother was a sun-touched, and she was nothing like the monsters who tortured good people to death in the building behind me. It sickens me when light eating is equated with sun worship. I might have been a sun worshipper myself, even a healer in some earlier age. Let's go with the middle one. Light eating is a monstrous practice, loathsome to any decent person, no matter the faith or blood in their veins. It unfairly tarnishes all sun worshippers by association. You are not a sun worshipper yourself, of course. You are a rationalist, like all educated men. But your own grandmother was a healer, and there is some evidence you might be sun-touched like she was, and you can't tell anyone either of those things, because they will assume you are like the monstrous from Blask. It's as much your career is worth to let that secret get out. Before you can decide if you want to share any of these thoughts with Pierce or how to phrase them, artillery roars almost overhead as you jump nearly out of your skin. You look up in alarm, just in time to see a hail of bullets hit the lip of the ravine. Boulders pour down like a waterfall, too fast for you to scramble out of the way or shield Pierce, and the last thing you see before your vision goes black is the cascade of stone striking his fragile form. You claw your way back to consciousness in slow, painful stages. Finally, you drag your eyes open. The rock slide did not bury you, but you've been hurt by falling rocks, badly. You can feel blood seeping from your wounds to soak into the ground below, but at least you are alive. So is Pierce, but only just. Blood spurts from a deep wound in his shoulder. Damnation. Spurts. You scramble drunkenly toward him to apply pressure. Your hand is shaking as you clamp down. Your head is spinning from your own blood loss, and very bad doesn't even begin to describe the situation. You stare at your hand, pressing down on Pierce's shoulder with all the force you can muster. It lies tan against Pierce's white skin, surrounded by other handprints of red, but you are nothing like them. Light eaters draw life from their victims through the palms of their hands, and careless ones leave handprints behind. Dark red against Pierce's skin, the same way your hand is dark brown. You whisper to yourself, I am nothing like them, but you might be. Your gran said you were. I'm nothing like them beats like a drum in your head, but maybe you are, and maybe that's the way to save something from this disaster. Take Pierce's life finally and save myself? The same hands that take life can give it. The sun-touched, who can take another person's inner light to sustain themselves, can also give their own light to ones in need. So I can heal him with it. I'm a healer, cool. When you were a lad, all you knew was that some people in the village called your gran witch, and worse things, and acted afraid of her, while others brought all their problems to her for solving. You were too young to understand why until the day she took you along when she went to heal a playmate of yours from pneumonia. She held the child's hands, and then had you hold them, telling you that you could feel the fire inside a person if you concentrated hard enough, and that once you felt it, you could fan it into flame even when it dwindled to almost ash. And once the flame was burning, then the healing would begin. You've got the old gift, she told you. For all your hair is dark like your dad's. You've got a bit Daz, probably. You've got a bit of my blood, and the gift runs in the blood. Your friend did indeed begin to recover at that moment, but your father was furious when he learned of your involvement. He warned you that you must never do such a thing again or let anyone know you could. You never have. Even the people who know that your grand did in the sick room don't know you had a hand in it. You've never let on to anyone the secret of the blood that might run in your veins. You've never used it. You've never been tempted to use it. But Pierce's face is dead white, his blood gushing between your fingers. Your friend is dying. You're losing blood fast and are well on the way to unconsciousness yourself, and for the first time since you left home to study medicine, you find yourself tempted to try healing magic. You're nothing like the light healers. Of course you're not. But you're bleeding to death, and so is Pierce, and this might be the last choice you ever make. Maybe you can use your grand's old gift, healing, to save his life. Do you? Yes, it is the best chance I have of saving him, and no one is here to see, after all. Yes, it will balance what I have done to him by those who share my inherent talent. No, I can't be sure it will work. I will put my faith in modern medicine and make Pierce a tourniquet while I am still conscious. No, I am a man of science and refuse to lie on that superstitious nonsense. I will make a tourniquet. No, no, never. I will not be in any way like my enemies across the battlefield. I fumble to make a tourniquet. No, I can hear artillery coming, but I don't know whose. I won't save him just so he can be captured again and tormented. Take my hand away from the wound and let the blood flow. These are a lot of interesting options here. Yeah, let's save him. Let's try to use magic. I want to use magic. You look down at your hand clamped over Pierce's bleeding shoulder and try to remember what it was your grand told you to do. Close your eyes, reach out not with your hand, but with the flame inside yourself. You feel ridiculous. That's because this is ridiculous. I'm a doctor. Start looking to wake, turning. I keep trying. And with a suddenness that feels like falling off a cliff, you know when you have succeeded. A moment of connection is like nothing you've ever experienced. It makes you think of warm summer rain and throat-catching music and sun-ripened blackberries. What follows really is a lot like reviving a dying flame in a hearth. You imagine yourself fanning it, coating it, coaxing it, feeding it a little bit of twigs, though you are physically doing none of these things. It takes a great deal of effort. You feel increasingly lightheaded, but you dare not stop. Your vision is darkening around the edges. With the last of your energy, you try to push Pierce's now bright inner flame to the direction of his shoulder. Maybe that will stop the bleeding from the inside? With a question mark. For some reason, that shouldn't be there. But before you know you have succeeded, artillery roars almost beside you, snapping you back to the real world. The blank-eyed face of a mech looms over you. You can't tell whose empire it serves. The mech's cannon's arm swivels, and there's nothing you can do now for Pierce or yourself. You can't even move enough to flinch. Bullets rain all around you and pummel you back into darkness. And you gasp awake, heart hammering in your bed in Kingsford, Mercia's bustling capital city. Nightmare. It was a nightmare. Damn bloody nightmares. Damn bloody realistic nightmares. You'd swear your ears are ringing with the sound of cannon, but it's 1885. 1885, not 1881. And the cannons have been silent for nearly 3 years. You slump against the pillow, sweat running down your back. Alright, that was chapter 1. What do we have for time on this one real quick? Let me just double check that. 23 minutes. We'll keep going. Chapter 1, The Adventure of Nigel. Trevelyan Glass? Let's go ahead and show our stats here real quick. So my charisma is up to 75. My healing is at 62. My medicine is at 62. My unconventional is higher than my conventional, and my stealthy is higher than my quick. Interesting. You slowly become aware that you are awoken by a sound. Your flatmate is knocking at your bedroom door. It's early for him to be awake and your stomach knots. He's your friend as well as your colleague, and he knows about your nightmares, but you still hope like hell you weren't shouting in your sleep. Watson, he calls. That's my name, duh. And his voice sounds perfectly normal, so very likely you weren't. Thank mercy for small favors. The game's afoot. The phrase makes you twitch a smile despite the chill sweat drying on your skin. It's not Finch's usual manner of speaking. He can be a proud and arrogant sort when he chooses, but he's not so artificially pretentious as to customarily pepper his casual speech with iambic pentameter from a play 3 centuries old. But he used the quote once to describe Woodward's telegrams. and it seemed to fit in the intervening 2 years. It has evolved into something between a standing joke and a code phrase. It is the year 1885, and you are honorably discharged veteran of Her Imperial Majesty's Army, working as a police surgeon. On paper, in practice, your role is far more interesting. I don't understand why there's a sentence straight up on paper. It should be working as a police surgeon on paper, and then in practice, your role is far more interesting. Though the ink of the peace treaty has long since dried, the war between empires of Mercia and Vlask continues in subtle ways. And you are a secret soldier for your country, as you were an open one when the war was fought on an open battlefield. You serve on Arthur Woodward's unofficial spy force, tasked with detecting and foiling Vlaski plots before they are able to pose real danger to the Empire or its subjects. A summons from Woodward, therefore, is of no trivial matter. If you're hearing from him, the game is well and truly afoot. I've sent the page boy for a cab, Finch adds through the door. We should have one in 5 minutes. I'll be ready in 10. You have yourself out of bed. You heave yourself out of bed, duh. You are thinking, I have never been so thankful to receive a telegram. Woodward's timing is terrible. I can't do this today. I can't. Well, his timing is fucking terrible. Because reasons. You are exhausted. The cold makes your old wound ache abominably. And if the summons had come from anyone else, you would pull the quilt back over your head and ignore it. But the summons did come from the man who is effectively your superior officer. And you've never let Finch go to face Vlaski conspiracies alone. Grumbling at the cold and your aching head, you pull off the nightshirt and reach for your clothing. Blech. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, and your wound seems unusually vivid and prominent today. Not that it needed to do anything further to call attention to itself. The fierce ache was accomplishing that quite nicely on its own. Look, it doesn't help that I had like 5 hours of sleep every single day this week and got up at 3 in the morning and got off work at like 3 in the afternoon, and then today managed to get home at 5 o'clock because even though I got out of work early, we still had to go to the hospital and go shopping and do all sorts of other crap. Blech. Not that it needed to do anything further to call attention to itself. The fierce ache was accomplishing that quite nicely on its own. Okay. I used to be a crack shot, but the injury to my shoulder has rendered me barely incompetent with a firearm. I used to be quite the athlete, but the injury to my leg was severe. Fuck it. Let's say that I'm regular. What is that? One man's life. Save James Pierce. Cool. You try to be philosophical about it. Philosophy comes easier some mornings than others. You are well aware that it could have been much worse. It's always worse in your dreams. In your dreams, your final adventure with Pierce usually concludes with a hail of bullets. At least in the real story did not end quite so grimly. You did save his life with your unauthorized healing magic. No one knows that. You were found with your hand clamped over his injured shoulder, and your rescuers assumed you had thereby slowed the bleeding enough to keep him alive until they found the two of you. Quite likely that's all it was. I can't be sure I did anything else. In my heart, I know I healed him. The knowledge terrifies me. In my heart, I know I healed him, and so I wish I had a mentor to train me in this art. Healing magic is well enough for emergencies, but I wouldn't pursue training in this area even if I could. Modern medicine is enough for me. Nah, fuck that. I'd love to be able to train more on that shit. But even to express this wish would ostracize you from good society, so you've discussed it with no one. You and Pierce were both injured severely enough to be invalided when home. To be invalided home. Yeah, Doug. Cats at home. 9 months later, peace was declared, peace without victory for either side, and a border that scarcely moved from its antebellum position. How do you feel about running so hard just to stand still? We were not running, we were spilling blood. The brutal waste of it all sickens me. At least we prevented the Vlaski from encroaching upon our land. I cling to that thought. I struggle between pride and what we accomplished, the horror at what cost. I work with Woodward to nip next war in the bud so no other young men will have to endure what my comrades and I did. I'm going to say we were spilling blood. It sickens me. Invalided home, both you and Pierce began the long and painful process of getting on with your lives. He took a post in the hospital in the north. You became a police surgeon. When you were recruited into Woodward's irregulars, where you perform real valuable services to your country. Oh, then, sorry. You work alongside trusted and respected comrades in arms. Things aren't so bad, really, except on mornings like these. You dress as quickly as you can trousers, shirt, waistcoat, tie, watch on a chain. You tuck your old service revolver in your pocket. You never leave for a Woodward mission without it. Your flatmate, Garrett Finch, is waiting for you by the door. Despite his overcoat's frayed cuffs, his newspaper photographer's income is no more generous than your police surgeon's salary. Read properly, please. His tall form somehow manages to look elegant anyhow. I exert myself to betray no sign of my restless night. I hate appearing weak before him. There's no point to trying to hide the signs of sleepiness. Finch's penetrating eyes see through all my attempts to artifice. It's what makes him so valuable to Woodward. There's no point to trying to hide. I don't wish to anyhow. We're close friends. We'll go with that. Close friends? How do I see that? I feel like my unconventional went up. Oh, duh, because I was like, yeah, I do like the healing thing. I know in my heart I did that did the unconventional thing, and then the compassionate of being like, it fucking sucked to kill those guys. Now that's up a little bit. He glances at you once, then again more sharply. All right, he says. You shrug. Well enough, let's go. 9 minutes after he knocked on your door, the pair of you are rattling through the just awakening streets in a hansom cab. You watch the fruit sellers setting up their stands, and the news agents opening their shutters, and the serving girls scrubbing their masters' front steps. They don't know it, but Arthur Woodward and his operatives stand between them and harm. I am an operative of Arthur Woodward. Can I call him Squidward? Squidward claims to be nothing more than a major government official, but that is manifestly untrue. For one thing, no minor government functionary could afford suits so precisely tailored. Moreover, though Woodward's office is at the end of a rabbit warren of passageways in a nondescript building, he somehow rates a polite secretary to receive his visitors. Today, Woodward meets you in his secretary's outer office. He has seated his considerable bulk in the chair in which visitors customarily wait before he summons them to enter, his eyes half closed in a way that might suggest drowsiness if you didn't know better. His secretary, Miss Lawrence, neat in a shirt waist and dark blue skirt, is already busy on her typewriter. Over their shoulders, in Woodward's inner office, you see an unhappy-looking young man seated in a chair with his hands shackled behind him and his ankles chained to chair legs. What do we have here? You ask Woodward. At a guess, French drawls from behind you. The theft of something crucial to national security by the government clerk you see before you. His first foray into treason, if I'm not much mistaken. Probably because he was blackmailed, but possibly because his son Temple Cultus convinced him to do it. It would be hard to say without more information. You are all accustomed to Finch's deductive leaps, but even for him that's extraordinary. You, Woodward, and Miss Lawrence all stare. Finch shrugs. The shiny marks on the cuffs from the pressure of writing declare he works in an office, and his age and shabby attire suggest clerk rather than more senior position. He is clearly in a great deal of trouble. It is clearly something of national importance, or Woodward not be involved. It might be sabotage, but the position of clerk rather suggests opportunities for theft. Is this guy supposed to be like my Sherlock now? He's just going to explain everything to me because I'm fucking John Watson. As he talks, I look to the clues he lists. Yes, right, the cuffs. I should have caught that. I wince just a little at the cool, didactic tone. The son Temple Cultus convince him. I look for signs this young man is son Temple Cultus himself. Let's do that. Not every gentleman of your class would recognize them, but you have somewhat unusual background for a gentleman of your class. Because of your grandmother, you are able to recognize several subtle signs of those who worship the sun. In this case, the sign is not even all that subtle. The angle is wrong to be able to tell for certain, but you wonder if the medallion that glints on his watch chain might be sun-shaped. Finch continues. If he were a regular informant, paid to act as a mole by the Vlasky government, he would have been able to afford a frock coat without frayed cuffs and boots without patches on the soles. So it is more likely that he is a maiden voyage into treason. The question of blackmail versus indoctrination is harder to resolve. That charm on his watch chain indicates he is a secret sun worshipper, one not yet good at keeping secrets, to judge by the visibility of the charm. If I can observe someone else, making blackmail a possibility. On the other hand, most of those temples are hotbeds for sedition, so he may have convinced rather than coerced. For that matter, we have no way of knowing how many temples are run by actual light eaters, and we may have seen those upon whom light eaters routinely feed can develop an odd sort of loyalty, not unlike the manner in which prisoners sometimes come to relate to their torturers. Finch's parlor trick is abruptly much less amusing. For a moment you feel as though the dark shadows of Pierce's prison cell have settled around you, as though you cannot draw a deep breath. I set my teeth and clench my fist enough to drive the nails into the palm. I am not about to let Woodward see the memories still affect me. Finch, I interrupt with an effort at nonchalance. You do realize he is sitting right here and we can resolve this question by more direct means. And I manage a nonchalant Finch. Let's grit my teeth and do my palm with the nail thingy. I don't know if that actually changed anything, but... beside you, Finch checks momentarily, and you realize he caught your movement, even if no one else did. Damnation. But that's enough of theory, Finch continues, briskly and so smoothly no one else but you could have heard the pause. We have the man himself right here. After all, we can resolve these questions by more direct means. Literally exactly what it just gave me an option. Indeed, Woodward agrees, heaves himself to his feet, and turns to lead you into the office. Behind his back, Finch touches your arm. Lightning quick, when you glance at him, he mouths, I apologize. Also, indeed here, and I apologize with what Finch is saying. These should not be in the same paragraphs. These should be separate paragraphs. I'm ignoring the fact that it's in there. Personally, I prefer to always put quotes there, but I mean, if it's in the middle of a paragraph, it does tell me better who's saying it, at least. You have just an instant to give him a little don't worry about it shake of the head. You know he was only speaking thoughtlessly, too caught up in the mechanics of deduction to remember the personal part of the equation. Now then, Woodward says with a drawing irony, may I present the Honorable George Easterly. The youth winces at his tone. As Mr. Finch observes, Woodward continues, Mr. Easterly has been employed as a junior clerk in the Naval Department of Her Imperial Majesty's War Office, a position of great delicacy and responsibility, with which he has proven himself unfit to hold. Last night he allowed a Vlasky agent working in Kingsford to examine and copy the plans of the Nigel Trevelyan glass. Trevelyan? Probably. The Nigel Trevelyan glass, Finch repeats. I've never heard of it. Of course you have not, Woodward snaps. It is among the War Office's most closely guarded secrets. This miserable child was entrusted with one of only 3 keys. You study Easterly. I fight down the panic that rises in my chest. If he's a light eater, chaining his hands behind his back makes us safe enough. For a moment, I am reserving judgment. He might be a light eater, but might only be a superstitious fool who follows them. A man well educated enough to be a clerk is hardly the usual sort to become part of the Sun Temple cult. If he's somehow been duped into joining, it's surely our duty to rescue him. A wave of pity washes through me, and though I don't dare show it, not all sun worshippers are light eaters. Not all capable of becoming light eaters harm others with their talent. I'm going to go ahead and say that because I am one. Wonder if that gave me like more compassion or something. I think my unconventional went up. You would know after all. Yeah, exactly. Duh. Woodward continues. He apparently intended to return the plans to their safe before the opening of the business this morning, but fortunately for us, the senior clerk had come early to the office and had already missed the plans, which were promptly found in Easterly's pocket. Finch turns to Easterly. Might there be some more complex explanation? Easterly licks his lip. No, sir. It is what it appeared to be. I have already confessed. Yes, I say urgently, but why matters. I feel sincere compassion towards the unfortunate young man. Yes, I say, but why matters. Feigning compassion is the best way to get him to talk. I've never been so sincerely outraged in my life. Feigning outrage is the best way to get him to talk. Did it just get up more conventional? Unconventional? Yeah, I did. Oh, compassionate went up more. You take a chair, swing it around, and sit backwards with your arms crossed over the top. How about it, lad? What's the rest of this story? Easterly looks at you with surprise and faint hope. Out of the corner of your eye, you catch Finch's look of surprise. Watson, you cannot possibly pity this traitor. Quiet, Finch, you say without looking away from the boy. I think there's more going on here. It's Finch. There are quicker ways to find out what we need to know, Finch snarls. If he thinks so little of his country, he doesn't deserve our... It wasn't that, the boy bursts out. He looks from Finch to you, then settles on you. I was being blackmailed. My fiancée, she... He swallows. She's a sun worshipper. She persuaded me. I went with her to a meeting, and They're good folks, sir. Nothing like what people say of them. Woodward rubs his forehead. You joined their cult. It's not a cult. Easterly starts to protest, then sighs. Yes, I did. And a man with a Vlasky accent stopped me, and I walked home from work one night. He said, if I did not help him, he would see to my superiors discovered my conversion, yeah. And sun worshippers may not hold public office or any other position of responsibility. And there was my fiancé to think of. We'd be ostracized as well as penniless. It was my whole life. What else could I do? You're a public servant, Finch says in a voice dripping with contempt. You could have put the welfare of your empire above your personal affairs. Couldn't agree more. I don't think Finch spoke strongly enough. I'd lay money on Easterly having stronger connection to Vlask than he admits. He's a sun worshipper after all. I'm not sure this is quite as black and white as Finch thinks it is. Surely Easterly had some responsibility to his fiancée too, ? I hate when people fucking do that. It's not a question. It's like a wistful statement. Easterly acted wrongly, of course, but you would hope spared such a torturous decision yourself. I just got more compassion and 2% more unconventional. Finch turns to Woodward. What is this nigrotraveling glass? The nigrotraveling glass translates human-produced electromagnetic waves into a medium perceptible by the human eye, Woodward says. To anyone wearing goggles or spectacles made of this glass, light eaters will show up as surrounded by an aura of blood red, while the rest of the population appears to be surrounded by an aura of golden white. It will become possible, Finch concludes slowly, to see at a glance the light eaters that walk among us. Woodward nods tightly. As matters stand today, we can't even tell a likely suspect on sight, unless he happens to have red hair or openly identify with the cult. He tosses a contemptuous look at Easterly. This glass will rewrite the rules by which this war is fought. You see what is at stake here. We cannot let those plans into enemy hands, or the Vlasky will begin at once to engineer a defense. It will become possible to see at a glance light eaters that walk among us. We'd be safe then. Nothing like that Vlasky prison camp could ever happen with Mercy and Borders. Within Mercy and Borders, if we knew who they were, we'd be able to see light eaters who walk among us or the sun-touched who walk among us. It seems unjust to target the latter group before they do something wrong. A tendril of panic slides through my belly. Would they be able to tell the blood I bear or might bear? Would the law apply to someone like me who carries the blood but isn't a member of the cult? I find myself scientifically curious. How could the Vlasky go about engineering a defense? How does the glass work anyhow? We'll go with that second one. You managed to find a neutral way of phrasing the question. How does the glass go about detecting light eaters, or does it detect all sun-touched? How could you do that without drawing blood first? It detects light eaters specifically, Woodward says, by studying the electromagnetic emanations produced by a large population of human subjects over a period of many years. Nigel and his student Trevelyan determined that certain habitual behaviors create subtle changes in electromagnetic wave frequency. Specifically, the appalling practice of light eating will, over a long period of time, noticeably shorten the frequency of the practitioner's emanations. Oh, well, that's good. Those who are sun-touched but do not use the talent to hurt people are safe. So, we assume, at least. Am I pragmatic? Go back up? Whatever. It's too, Finch. It's too late to keep the plans from enemy hands, surely, Finch says. If I understand you correctly, they are already there. We have been seen by one of our enemy agents. They have been seen by one enemy agent, yes, Woodward replies. But if we move quickly, they will not be seen by any others. He leans his hands on his desk and looks across at the two of you intently. There is no way Easterly's Vlasky contract can know that we have arrested him. If Easterly sends him a message this morning claiming that an important change has been made to the glass design, Vlasky will surely desire a second meeting without delay. We have Easterly arrange it for tonight, and we trap the Vlasky then. We'll discuss details once Easterly writes us a message for the personals column. The what? You ask. Woodward waves a copy of the Times. They were communicating by coded advertisements in the personals column. These here, addressed to D. Easterly, says that he wrote them. He pointed them to me earlier this morning. In his hysterical effort to convince me he had performed no act of treason before this one, I have enough information to reconstruct the code and his correspondent Dmitri used. But the ruse will be better if Easterly composes the message. I will not, Easterly says softly. Everyone turns to stare at him. Woodward is the first to speak. Not an hour ago you threw yourself whinging upon my mercy. That commodity is neither plentiful nor free. If you do all in your power to help us recover the plans, you may possibly hope for some leniency in your punishment. But otherwise I should take great personal pleasure in seeing you hang. You talk as though my life still had value to me, Easterly says. If I do not hang, they will know I helped you. How long do you think I will live then? What do you suppose they will do to my fiancée? If I go to a traitor's death, at least they will have no reason to torment me afterward. Woodward is for the moment speechless with rage. In the silence, an idea occurs to you. What do you say? I speak to Easterly. Your life has no value to you. What does? I speak to Woodward privately. I can prepare you a syringe of something that will relax him and may make him more willing to do as you ask. I will speak with Woodward in front of the others. He need not participate. I can write it. I would be able to write it, right? Because I've got charisma. Right? Perception hasn't done anything, but I haven't had an option of increasing perception yet. Let's offer to write it. I don't want to go directly down the unconventional fully. I mean, it just happens to be more useful. Woodward looks surprised. You? You said you have the code phrases. Do you have all the earlier messages? Then I am confident I can write something that sounds the same. The Vlasky won't suspect a thing. Woodward is silent for just a moment, then calls for Miss Lawrence. Get the doctor a pen and paper, and the list of messages. With the newsprint in front of you and the clock ticking inexorably behind you, you write as fast as you can. You count the number of words in each message and make sure the new one is neither unusually short nor unusually long. You employ one of the code phrases whose meaning Woodward is uncertain of. You read the result 3 times to be sure the tone and rhythm match the others. Woodward examines your work, nods, and calls for a messenger to take it to the office of the Times. We can just get it in the morning edition, he says. Thank you, Doctor. A most innovative solution. Sweet. I increased in charisma. Not perception, though. Whatever. That night, you and 2 other operatives gather at the empty house Easterly and Dmitri have been using to meet, and settle down to wait. You must, of course, sit without a fire, and the night is bitter cold. Your feet grow numb within your boots, and you shift gently, silently, trying to keep the blood flowing. Finally, midnight tolls, and you gratefully rise to your feet. You know your companions are doing the same, although you cannot see them. Stevenson waits at the end of the darkened corridor. You stand where you can see into the room with the makeshift writing desk, and Morris, the youngest and strongest of the 3 of you, is stationed within that very room. Behind the door, from which the position he will hopefully be able to subdue Dmitri the instant Vlasky steps through the doorway. Down below, the back door creaks open. A wave of adrenaline whip cracks through you. Use the press to catch criminal. Achievement. Got it, cool. If you did not know the man climbing the stairs was Finch disguised in George Easterly's clothing, you would never be able to guess. The masquerade is perfect. Finch's genius with disguise is second only to his sharp eyes. The dark lantern trembles in the deliberately shaking hand, making the light dance in a way that obscures rather than illuminates. You cannot really see the Vlasky spy climbing the stairway behind him, but at least you are confident he cannot see you either. Dmitri follows Finch into the room with the desk, and you tense, revolver ready. Finch unshutters the lantern fully at the same moment Morris springs. Morris tackles the Vlasky half to his knees, one arm around his throat. But Dmitri whirls before Morris can establish the chokehold. He's a big man, but you have never seen anyone move that fast ever. Morris gives an odd little gasp and crumples, and the Vlasky is sprinting for the stairway before your comrade hits the floor. Finch spits a curse and follows at a dead run. The flash of Finch's lantern as it goes by shows the knife sticking out of Morris's chest, the blood welling up around the hilt. What do? I run to Morris's aid. I pause long enough to say, Morris, stay still and don't pull it out, before I sprint to help capture Dmitri. I pause long enough to whisper, Morris, stay still and don't pull it out. Then I slip out the door into the corridor, silent and concealed by shadow. I'm going to go save Morris real quick. You may have a duty to help secure the enemy spy, but you're a doctor first. You have to take a moment to be sure of your teammates' welfare. You drop to your knees beside Morris, fumbling for your own dark lantern. His eyelashes flicker, and his breath becomes rapid and shallow. The injury itself isn't immediately life-threatening as long as the knife stays where it is, but shot carries its own risks. You pack bandages around the wound to staunch the bleeding, then shrug off your overcoat and to use it as a blanket. From the floor below, you hear Thump's curses, a cry of pain, and Stevenson hoarsely calling your name. You have to get down there. Losing the Vlasky with his head full of War Office secrets puts the lives of many innocents at risk, but Morris's skin is still clammy, his pulse still weak and rapid. You have only an instant to decide. Do you trust that your medical treatment so far will be enough to keep Morris in one piece until you return, or do you push a little healing magic into his skin before you go? I use healing. The sooner I have Morris stabilized, the sooner I can get there and help. I place my trust in modern medicine. I am tempted to use healing, but I can't. If I am associated with sun worshippers and light eaters, I will lose my career surely as George Easterly lost his. Now, fuck it, healing. You lay your hands against Morris's clammy skin and close your eyes. For a moment you swear you can hear pounding and rumble of battlefield as you try to remember what it was you did to heal Pierce. The moment of connection floods all your senses, sense leaves you reeling. I think it should say leaving you reeling. You focus on the weakened flame that burns under Morris's skin and pour energy through the palms of your hands to revive it. It's easier this time. You break off the instant you feel lightheaded. If you heal him completely, your colleagues will know what you have done, and you haven't the time in any case. His skin is warmer now, his breathing a pulse slower. You drape your coat over him, then scramble up to help the others. My healing is now at 71. Cool. Just as you reach the landing, you hear a solid thud from below, 2 pairs of feet running, and the heavy door slamming shut behind them. Looking down, you see the entryway deserted except for Finch. He leans against the wall as though dizzy. Visible in the poor light of the dark lantern, standing livid against the pale skin of his face, is a red handprint. Fury clouds my vision, so the Vlasky is a light eater as well and a spy, and he had the audacity to lay hands on a friend of mine. For a moment, panic rises in my throat, the handprint on Finch's face merging with the remembered handprint on Pierce's. A sense of despair threatens to overwhelm me in my city. They're in my city. Beneath the worry over Finch, I am conscious of a little thrill of pleasure at the magnitude of this challenge. Fuck it, I'll take the challenge. Did I just lose compassion? No. Okay, sure. A light eater is far more dangerous than a spy, and his capture is a far greater victory. Oh, you're going to enjoy this. But first, it is of paramount importance to see that Finch is well. You run down the stairs to your friend. Finch raises his head to look at you. It's all right, he manages. I'm fine. He only touched me for a moment. It's already fading. With a grimace of attempted humor, he adds, That bastard looked like a light eater to you? Nor to me. We need that bloody glass in the worst way. He pushes off the wall, shaking his head to clear it. Right, come on, we can't let him get away. Neither Dimitri nor Stevenson is in sight as you burst through the front door and into the street, but the sound of their running footsteps carry clearly in the frosty night air. You and Finch pause a moment, listening. The footsteps come from dead ahead as the crow flies, but the most direct route is blocked by a building. Finch goes right, you go left. As you approach the left-hand alleyway, the footsteps somewhere in front of you fade, still without telling you exactly where they are. I run through the alleyway, trusting that my dark lantern will be enough to guide me and my reflexes quick enough to avoid the obstacles within. I move slowly, trusting that I'm stealthy enough to avoid drawing the notice of anyone lurking within. Even knowing I have no time to waste, I spend a few precious seconds listening hard, attempting to gather additional data. Let's try to increase my perception by doing the last one. It didn't do jack shit. You pause in the blackness of the alleyway and strain your ears for sounds that would indicate another presence here with you. If the Vlasky has planned an ambush, you will not be so foolish to stumble into it. Nothing. You ease forward a few steps and listen again. Still nothing. A hand shoots out of the darkness and fastens over your ankle, and with an ice-cold thrill of horror, you fall, crashing hard to your knees in the stones. Bloody hell! Stevenson's voice rasps. Watson, I'm sorry, you all right? You unshutter your lantern. Stevenson's face is paper white, and he sits on the filthy cobblestones, sagging against the brick wall as though he hasn't the energy to hold himself upright. His shirt has been torn open, and the handprint is branded on his chest. Not that you needed the confirmation. He is displaying all the symptoms of a man drained dangerously close to death by a light eater. I'm all right, he insists in a voice no louder than a whisper. Leave me here and go after him. He went that way. Just be warned. He got my pistol away from me. I thank him for warning, clasp his hand in farewell, and continue in my pursuit direction he indicated. He'll be all right until I get back. I hesitate, looking about for something I can do for him. I press my own revolver to his hand. At least you won't be defenseless. I brought down my marksmanship, so I'm just gonna fucking give him the revolver. Did I get more compassion for that? I did. Have you lost your mind? Stevenson pushes the firearm back to you, so agitated he almost raises his voice above a rasp. I'll be fine. Go get him. Revolver in hand, you continue your pursuit in the direction Stevenson indicated. The Vlasky has to be captured, while there is still an operative left standing to do it. I'm at 25% for marksmanship. If I try to do anything with a gun, dude's gonna fail. Although realistically, I would be probably higher with marksmanship. It's just that the game doesn't give me the option of doing that for obvious reasons. I can't just pick whatever I want and win all the time. You emerge from the alleyway maze to a street where Gaslight provides a little illumination, and at once spot Finch, partway down the street, back turned to you, moving with his unusual cat-like grace and listening hard with his head tilted. And behind him, a larger, bulkier form looms. Gaslight gleams off the pistol the Vlasky is pointing at Finch's back. You have only an instant. What do? I draw the Vlasky's attention to myself and away from Finch. I raise my own revolver and drop him where he stands before he can fire. I scoop up a convenient chunk of brick and throw it hard. If I can smash the glass of the opposing building, Dimitri might be distracted and will not be reflexively firing at my position. I'm going to draw his attention. I don't think that did anything yet. It's a risky decision, prioritizing your friend's safety over your own, but it's the only thing to do. Battle fever sings in your veins as you take the one step that puts you directly behind your empire's enemy. You feel the rictus grin pulling your lips back from your teeth. This is how we of Mercia bring down our enemies. We are fearless. Your shout pierces the quiet night, a challenge in broken battlefield Vlasky. Face me, you bloody coward. Dimitri whirls, firing, and you flatten against the wall. Not quite quickly enough. Did I get anything else? I'm still the same. I don't think I have an option of increasing perception yet. Because slowing down didn't do anything. A hot pain sears your shoulders. You can't spare attention for it. You lunge back out of the shadows, revolver raised to fire back. just in time to see a white-faced Finch drop the Vlasky from behind, firing until his revolver is empty. Dimitri crumples to the cobblestones, and Finch sprints up the street towards you. You meet over the lifeless body. Finch kicks aside the Vlasky's weapon, and you drop to your knees to check for a pulse, though from the look of the chest and the blood there is hardly any point. Dead, you report, looking up. The earlier roil of emotion seems to have spent itself. Your mind is now clear and calm. This is a battlefield after a battle, and you know how to handle those. Finch, looking shaken, pockets his revolver and comes to take hold of your arm. You're hurt. Your shoulder is throbbing now, and you come to pay attention to it. You twist to look as Finch pulls aside layers of cloth to examine the injury. Not badly, you reassure him. No, truly, I've been badly hurt, remember? I know the difference. Morris and Stevenson are both worse off. We need to get back to them. Finch rapidly twists a handkerchief into a makeshift bandage. A tremor runs through his fingers, no doubt due to cold. You realize that was incredibly stupid. How do you reply? With a cheeky good cheer of a man who has survived the battlefield, by explaining the cool rationale underlying my tactic. With annoyance, I have had this conversation before and I'm not in the mood. By brushing it off, he and I are always doing stupid things in each other's defense. We could reduce this conversation to a code phrase too if we had a mind to. Let's be cheeky. I don't know if that did anything. My conventional went up another %. Everything else is pretty much the same. This is me. The part where you permitted him to sneak up behind you? Yes, it was. Indeed it was. Lucky I was there, isn't it? Finch starts to answer, but you talk over him. I could see you had a better angle than I did, so of course I gave you the chance to make use of it, which you did, and damn fine shooting, too. You reach with your uninjured arm to touch his shoulder. Thanks. Oh yeah, okay. Finch draws an angry-sounding breath, then lets go and smiles a little. Any time, he says with an ironic half-bow. Stevenson. I don't know how happy Woodward will be, Stevenson says, as you and Finch carry him back to the empty house. He said alive if possible. Alive if possible, dead if necessary, Finch corrects coolly. It was necessary. I think Woodward will be pleased enough. And he is. The final remaining step is to recover the copy of Vlasky made of the plans, but this is a task better suited to the skills of the Empire's official forces than to Woodward's irregulars. The official forces work backward from the underground ticket in the Vlasky's pocket to compile a list of likely boarding houses. And they are breaking down doors before the sun rises. They find the correct house. They search the dead man's room. They pull from beneath a floorboard the copy of Nigel Trevelyan plans, and the copy proves to contain the only Vlasky's fingerprints. Doubtless the dead spy was working as a member of a team, but equally obviously he has no chance to pass his acquisition up the chain of command before he died. So efficient are Her Imperial Majesty's investigative forces that Woodward receives the good news while you and Finch are still completing your debriefing in his office. Shortly afterward comes the news that Morris, brought to the nearest hospital, has been pronounced out of danger. Stevenson, though fearfully weak, is likewise expected to make a full recovery. Your arm has been tended and hardly hurts now. It too will fully recover in no time at all. So all's well, Finch says. For today, Woodward turns dryly, but he cracks a slight smile. Yes, it's a good day. The city is just waking as you and Finch rattle your way home in a hansom, the gas-lit dusk brightening into frosty winter dawn. The day promises to be very cold, but inside are eggs and bacon and coffee and a roaring fire. A good day, Finch echoes Woodward's words. Well, that's one word for it. We recovered the plans, we checkmated the plot, we prevented one Vlasky from ever again plying his filthy trade on Mercian soil, we ensured the Nigel Trevelyan glass will one day allow us to see the light-eaters that slink among us, and we didn't lose a single man's life in the process. And it's only 8 o'clock in the morning. Whatever would Kingsford do without the pair of us, Watson? That night, you sleep just fine. And we'll go ahead and end that one there because I go to bed and it's the blah 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 blah. So far, I'm enjoying this a whole lot more than the last game that I played. So, Hopefully it ends up continuing. I feel like the stats, a lot of times it does. I've noticed that they do this where it'll jump a lot and then like kind of tick slowly along. I might not get all the way to 100% conventional, but I mean I'm 90 and 10 already. So hopefully the game continues on quite a bit more, and I get to actually do some more stuff. So I'm Dr. John Watson, which is funny. I don't know what his actual middle initial is. I'll probably have to look that up. Anyway, we'll go ahead and leave that off here and keep playing later.